Today we're going to be talking about how the Vlog Squad both failed and succeeded simultaneously. It shows how long-term success on social media is earned and reiterated, not given. So the infamous Vlog Squad was a group of influencers who took over YouTube around 2015 when the 6-second video platform Vine ended. There were a lot of people associated with the Vlog Squad, but the core members were Dobrik, Jeff Wittek, Corinna Kopf, Gabbie, Hanna, Liza Koshy, Jason Nash, Natalie Noel, Scotty, Zane, Heath, and Jonah, whose name isn't really Jonah. Lots of people were in LA at the time for the sole purpose of becoming influencers. So they were looking for ways to collaborate with other creators and continue, especially since Vine had just ceased to exist one day. They had to take their Vine audiences to a longer form content platform, YouTube, and also figure out ways to make that longer content interesting for viewers. Most of the vlog content that they recorded on YouTube was through David's channel, David's Vlogs. And the Vlog Squad members were these actors. But David Dobrik being the owner of the channel seems to me like a complete power move. And I say it's a power move because any monetization made on that channel would be through David and under his control. And David is still the most successful Vlog Squad member in terms of finances. I think given that a lot of the Vlog Squad members were creating their own blueprint for themselves on social media, like the idea of having this sustainable long career on social media maybe wasn't really in their minds. They were focused on that specific moment of making content. David is such an interesting case of success online because it seems he's always been motivated by financial gain. He invested in this app called Dispo, an app that acts as a disposable camera. You take a picture and you have to wait for the picture to develop later on. He also had this side project of this Views podcast with Jason Nash. So this was another steady stream of income for David. He persisted in 2022 by opening up Doughbrik's Pizza in LA. And he doesn't make vlogs anymore, but recently fans have reported seeing him on Snapchat doing Snapchat stories. And if you don't know, Snapchat for a lot of creators is like this money pit now. David Dobrik is still profiting from the momentum that he has in social media spaces. Another successful Vlog Squad member is Corinna Kopf, who starred in a lot of the old David's vlogs. Corinna was always this character who was marketed off of her like sex appeal. The Vlog Squad always seemed to make suggestive comments about her appearance and kind of lean into that dumb blonde trope. But she was kind of a brewing businesswoman like behind all of this because she used all these things to her advantage. So Corinna started streaming. Some of Corinna's setbacks within the streaming community was that she violated terms of service by dressing inappropriately on the stream. Ultimately, Twitch banned her on the platform for an extended period of time. During this time, Facebook Gaming saw Corinna's marketability and they were like, hey, we're going to offer you this exclusive deal. You stream only on Facebook Gaming and we'll pay you this set amount of money. Corinna's like, yeah, this sounds like a good business move. From there, Corinna was able to connect and network with the streaming community and the gaming community, especially within Fortnite, which is a battle royale video game. And she really just became so integrated into the gaming community that it honestly felt very natural as a viewer to see that. But going back to like her use of her like physical appeal to audiences, and her using it to an advantage, this worked great for her, especially when she released her OF account in 2021.
Well, it's crazy, but like...
Just say it.
4.2 million.
What? Wait, what?
My first tit pic ever, I made $165,000.
So Corinna is really this great example of how to leverage your career in social media spaces off of your associations with David and not let those like specific setbacks control or dictate your success on these platforms. And I think someone else who used this David Dobrik association to his advantage was Jeff Wittek. So in 2021, Jeff Wittek he had this huge, I think almost life-threatening eye injury while he was filming one of David's vlogs in 2020. So basically David had the idea of spinning people around on an excavator and Jeff was like, hey, I'll do it. I'll be that guy to do the crazy stunt for the video and you get the views, right? Long story short, Jeff and David had a huge falling out and they're, I think, currently still in this legal battle of having to do with Jeff's multiple eye surgeries and things like that. Jeff took this injury and honestly used it to his advantage. Like, of course, he was like mourning the loss of like a long-term friendship that he had with David, but people were interested in the drama. Like, we were all like in lockdowns, consuming more content, and Jeff's like, okay, I'm gonna document this, put it on Patreon, this subscription-based platform, make money from that. And he does a lot of collaborations with like other creators in the business, but he's also left so much room to step away from the whole David Dobrik controversy. He's his own person now. He's his own creator. Like, he really took something traumatic and sort of molded it in a way that he benefits from this. I also feel like since the accident, Jeff was also given enough time to reflect on his solo career, and I think he takes it a lot more serious than he used to when he was doing David's vlogs. But with success, there will always be struggle. So let's talk about some of the more unsuccessful members of the Vlog Squad and like where they are and what happened to them. So Jason Nash, who was really good friends with David Dobrik, kind of David Dobrik's right-hand man. He's been under scrutiny lately for using his TikTok account to go live for hours and hours a day, every single day, asking people on TikTok Live for donations. And I think it's definitely a hustle, this TikTok Live thing that he's doing, but it feels like he's trying to cling on to really anything that he can to make money. I feel like a lot of people find Jason Nash's like TikTok Live career very low brow, just because a lot of the TikTok gifters are usually younger teenagers who are kind of cashing out their parents' money on TikTok gifts. And I see why this can be off-putting, because we live in an ageist society where it's like, this old guy's begging for money on TikTok. It's weird. And I think it's easy to judge, but it's like, if you were put into a situation where you really, really need money, you never know how far like you can take something, right? Jason Nash even shared on his podcast, All Good Things, that, you know, he's opened up to David Dobrik about like, hey man, like, I don't have money anymore. I'm about to lose my house, and David doesn't really relate to it. And I feel like these moments like that like highlight that disconnect that the successful Vlog Squad members have with the like less successful ones, where the successful ones aren't really relating. They're like, hey, we're making millions, like, why aren't you? It also engages this conversation about like, what does it really mean to be successful on social media? Like, is it the follower count? Is it the views? Is it the longevity? Or is it just simply being rich like David Dobrik? Like, you made it, like, you're a millionaire, right? I think it's important to also note that Jason was originally doing a podcast with David Dobrik called Views, but David dropped out due to his controversies and public backlash that he was receiving. It shows how David's other business pursuits put him in a better position to back out at any moment. Like, hey, I don't have to do this podcast, so like, I'm not going to. And then Jason is like, no, I have to do this podcast, and I need to do this podcast. Like, please do this podcast with me. And I think this is such a big problem where Jason relied so heavily on another person and his association with that other person to make money. It seems like the side projects that he was doing were like put on the back burner, and he was focusing on the collaborations with David instead of like his own career. Like, he didn't really have an investment. Like, if my podcasting tanks, what am I gonna do? It doesn't seem like he was actively thinking about that. The donations on TikTok Live aren't even very sustainable, especially if, you know, that's one of your main sources of income. So I think for Jason, like, returning to the drawing board, like, how can I create engaging content that is genuine to me, but also unique? Because your association with another person cannot be the driving force behind you as a creator, in my opinion. So Gabbie Hanna, who is also associated with the Vlog Squad, is now a fitness instructor at her hometown's YMCA in Pennsylvania. Plot twist. But if you remember Gabbie Hanna, she was really big on Vine, and then she moved over to YouTube. She was really successful on YouTube in the 2010s. And Gabbie Hanna is really a case where perspective is so important. To some, she may come off as successful in her own right, and to others, like, stepping away from social media could be perceived as a failure. And I honestly think it's legitimately both. Before doing the YMCA job, Gabbie owned her house in LA. She created art, she paints, dances, makes music, and her online presence was still available to viewers before recently she seemed to have You know, a lot of mental health struggles come out, and she documented this on her TikTok account, and it really just didn't end well for her on her TikTok page. I think the mental health struggles that she documented online increasingly became like a safety issue for her. So to me, it makes sense that she would want to take a break from social media and reevaluate. Like, for some people, returning to their hometown and returning to those roots can help them reevaluate their like sense of selfhood, maybe. So Gabbie's made a lot of money from her time on social media, but I think her biggest drawback is that her fan base had lost trust in her as this media personality. And as someone who consumed her content over the last few years, even listened to like some of her music, and honestly think she's an amazing artist, she seemed to switch between always being active to completely abandoning her social media pages. And in that way, she didn't really seem to have this plan in mind to keep her social media career pushing. Her content wasn't necessarily coherent a lot of the time also. So in this, right, like leaving social media is good. I feel like it would be hard to return online for her just because viewers just don't have trust in her. Like, they don't believe in her content anymore. They're not sure if they're being trolled or if she's being genuine. They can't get a read on her, and honestly, I can't either. Natalie Noel was the Vlog Squad member who was closest to David and remains close to David. They've been friends since high school. They moved to LA together. Natalie was David's assistant for a very long time. And I think David really helped her career tremendously. Other members like Zane, Heath, Jonah still use their associations with David to kind of push their relevance, but it's ultimately harder now. Like, for instance, Zane and Heath have a podcast together that does well on YouTube called Unfiltered. Their videos generate a lot of views on the platform, but I don't think that they'll ever be able to reboot that same power they had as the Vlog Squad members. That same success that they had just simply doesn't exist because social media has changed. What people want to see has changed. But they do seem to have a really good sustainable income in the podcast Unfiltered, just based off of viewership and engagement. And Vlog Squad is really this imprint on social media that now feels nostalgic and like very far away. So why does all of this matter, huh? It doesn't matter what the Vlog Squad is doing. Nothing matters. We're all on TikTok. It matters because we're seeing influencers who are at the height of their success slip into normalcy again. It reveals the hard and dark side of being a social media content creator. It's not as glamorized as like I personally imagined it, you know, in the 2010s and things like that, like thinking social media career is so amazing and like no one struggles, you just post videos and you get rich. It's not like that at all. And we have to remember that the career of the influencer is relatively new within the last decade plus. So being relevant, changing with the times is crucial on platforms. Like, there's a specific reason why each vlog member is either struggling right now or pursuing other things. And it comes down to their ability to always change with the current state of platforms and the current state of content creation. And like what worked on YouTube 6 years ago is so irrelevant and it won't work in the same way. And I think creators who have the most longevity on platforms will always change how they're producing content. So the Vlog Squad is a success and the Vlog Squad is a failure, and it's both simultaneously.